Welcome, everyone. It's great to see so many excited faces here to learn about Rosé, its production, and its evolving interest here in the U.S. market. My name is Christy Canterbury. I am a Master of Wine based here in New York City. I am a journalist, a speaker, and a critic of wine over the last 8 years. And prior to that, I ran retail wine programs for stores based here in New York City, Hong Kong, and Washington, D.C., as well as running restaurant beverage programs for Smith & Wollensky Restaurant Group and Culinary Concepts by Jean-Georges. But I think the singular most qualifying thing that I have done in my life to stand up here tonight is that my very first sip of any wine ever was actually a Provence Rosé. We're hosted tonight by Wines of Provence, who represent 3 AOPs, or Appellation d'Origine Protégée. They are Côte de Provence, with its 4 terroir designates, Saint-Victoire, Fréjus, very close to where I had that first sip of rosé, Pierrefeu, and Lalande. They are joined by Coteaux d'Aix-en-Provence and Coteaux Varois en Provence. The members of Wines of Provence produce 96% of Provence AOP wines, which in 2018 amounted to 165 million bottles of wine. Provence Rosé is iconic for many reasons, and especially because Provence is the leading rosé producer in the world. 90% of Provence's wine production is rosé. Wines of Provence account for 42% of all French AOP rosé and 5% of all rosé produced on the planet. And Wines of Provence has chosen to come to New York tonight because we're very thirsty for Provence rosé, and we take up about 46% of their exports today. That represents approximately 25% of all U.S. rosé imports and about 10% of the dry rosé market in the U.S. We have 2 panels tonight. The first one is going to look at rosé today and tomorrow, anticipating the evolution of consumer behavior, and especially, of course, consumer behavior in the United States. Our second panel will examine climate change and ecological transition, the role of Provence and its rosé wines. And we will be expanding into our backyard a little bit by looking at wine production and popularity in New York City's Long Island in the Hamptons. There's an awful lot of never presented before and possibly even never researched before information to give you tonight. So I'm going to be keeping us moving at a very brisk New York clip. If you would, save all of your questions for the panelists for the end of the panel, and I'll open us up to a Q&A at that time. So our first panel is going to look at 3 questions for the rosé phenomenon. 1, where did it start? 2, how is it doing today? 3, is it here to stay? And we're going to begin with an introduction by Eric Pastrino, who has joined us in New York for just a couple of days. Eric is the president of the AOP Côte de Provence Syndicate, and he is the president of the cooperative winery Gonfaron. Then we're going to have Brice Eymard from the Provence Wine Council show us a detailed look at rosé category in terms of production, consumption, and sales before providing us with some projections for the coming years. Then Erica Duecy, chief editor of 750 Daily, I'm sure you're all subscribed, will lead us into a never-before-done deep dive into 5 years of rosé transaction analysis from the 750 platform. 750 covers 45 states. There are about 150,000 wine professionals on it. About half of those are wholesale buyers. There are 1,000 distributors present on the platform and over 1 million SKUs. Eric is going to give us a peek at which countries are growing and shrinking in terms of rosé representation and SKUs, and also the median prices by country. Then she's going to dial down a little bit further and do the same for France and Provence. And then finally, we're going to take a look at the consumer perspective with Heini Zachariassen, the founder of Vivino, the world's largest online wine marketplace and most downloaded wine app. It's powered by 35 million wine lovers. About 8 million of those are here in the United States, and that accounts for about 22% of the platform. And Heini is going to present the rosé consumption trend within the Vivino community, looking at the evolution of the top markets for their scans, number of scans, as well as seasonality of scans, and then the position of Provence in the global spotlight. So let's get our iconic rosé panels rolling with a reel from Wines of Provence. Anyone doesn't want a glass of rosé now? It's a little unfair. But I guarantee you we have plenty to taste, about 3 dozen when we finish here at 7:30. Don't worry, time is going to fly between now and then as we talk about everything from the grapevine to the consumer's glass, when it comes to rosé. And now I'd like to invite Eric Pastorino to come address us and welcome us.
Bonjour à tous. Je suis ravi de participer avec vous tous à cette première édition du iconique panel.
Good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to be here with you to participate in this first Provence iconic rosé panel and to see the subject of interest is so compelling for American consumers.
Alors, je suis vigneron dans un petit village au cœur de la Provence qui s'appelle Gonfaron.
I'm a winemaker in a small village in Provence that is called Gonfaron.
Et je suis la 3e génération de viticulteurs, de vignerons. Et j'espère que mes enfants reprendront la suite.
I'm the 3rd generation winemaker, and I hope that my children will be able to continue after me.
Mais pour l'instant, le rêve de mon fils, c'est de venir vivre aux États-Unis. Hein?
But the hope of the dream of his son now is to actually come live in the United States.
Et depuis 5 ans, je suis président de l'appellation Côte de Provence. Hein?
And for 5 years, I have been the president of the Côte de Provence appellation.
Depuis 7 ans environ, les vins de Provence connaissent une croissance à l'export sans précédent.
Over the last 7 years, the exports of wines of Provence have seen an explosive growth in overall.
Et cette demande internationale a profondément modifié les équilibres et le fonctionnement de notre vignoble.
And this explosion of interest in rosé has changed the balance and the functioning of the vineyards.
La filière que je représente aujourd'hui fait en sorte de s'adapter à cette évolution.
And the industry today is working to adapt to this evolution.
Et les plus gros défis sont encore à venir car le marché mondial du rosé est en pleine croissance.
But we have plenty of challenges ahead of us as the entire rosé market is continuing to expand.
Les vins de Provence représentent actuellement 5% de ce marché.
The wines of Provence currently represent about 5% of the total global market.
Et en qualité de leader, la qualité de nos vins doit être exemplaire.
And the quality of our wines must be exemplary.
Et ceci pour satisfaire les fortes attentes de nos consommateurs.
In order to meet the strong demands of consumers.
Et notre vignoble opère une montée en gamme, pas seulement basée sur un prix, mais aussi sur un ensemble de facteurs.
And so our vineyards must function on a much higher level, not only in terms of price, but over a number of factors.
Qui répondent à une nouvelle façon de consommer à travers le monde.
Which includes a new way of consuming wine around the world.
Plus simple, plus proche du terroir, de l'authenticité, et sans oublier l'environnement.
A healthier lifestyle, more focused on the terroir and authenticity of the wines, and and the simple pleasure of tasting.
Et bien entendu, le plaisir de déguster un rosé de Provence. Et notre Observatoire mondial du rosé est là aussi pour nous permettre d'étudier les différentes évolutions pour mieux anticiper le futur.
And our the Rosé Wines World Tracking exists to allow us to study these evolutions in order to better anticipate the future.
Merci à vous tous.
Merci, Eric. All right. And again, thank you, Eric, and everyone who has joined us from Provence for just a couple of days. We are very happy to have your wines here, even after you have left. Now I'm going to turn this over to Brice Eymard, who is going to go through his presentation, Rosé and Provence Wines Around the World, a Growing Market. Brice?
Yeah, hello, everyone. So I'm Brice, the director of the Provence Wine Council. So I'm the first talking, so be sure the English speaking will improve during the show, and you will have less jet lag impact also. So I'll do my best. So first about the Rosé Wines World Tracking. It's a tool the CIVP created 15 years ago to have specific data about rosé, because it didn't exist. And we created it in a time that nobody but us cares. But now we are very proud to have it to analyze how the rosé market is evolute, and the rosé market evolution, and how we can deal with this. So some figures about the rosé market. On the left side of the production, so the production is around 224 million of cases, and the biggest producers are France, US, Spain, Italy, and South Africa. So with 5 countries, you have 75% of the production, so it's quite concentrated. And on the consuming part, in 2017, we estimated at 261 million cases, and 2 countries represent 50% of the market, France and the US. So 2 big countries for the consumption. The interesting part is that the market is growing each year. From 2002, first year of our Rosé Wines Tracking, to 2017, it grows by 30%, from 18 million, I speak in hectoliters, our French measure, and 23.4 million of hectoliters 15 years after. So it goes from 8% of the market to more than 10% of the wine market, world wine market. And we think it will increase more for the next years. And as an example, I show you some pictures from different markets. France here, US here, Australia and Singapore. And in US and France, two big markets, you can see that on shops you can find lots of rosé, but for example in Australia or in Singapore, it's still a very small part of the market. And so we think that the offer and the demand will increase on those markets and can increase because it's too small for us. And it's in the sweet wines, so the market is not mature. So this is an horrible figure, but I just want to show to you that the market is concentrated. In fact, Spain, the global trade represents nearly 40% of the global consumption, around 100 million of cases. But the main exporting country is Spain, and the biggest importing country is France. So two countries absorb a big part of the market. And for other markets, exporting or importing are small markets, even the US. And we represent it here on another horrible figure, but interesting one. This is the consumption per liter per capita. So bigger and bigger, and this is the market share of rosé wine in the total still rosé market. And France takes over the market. It's really bigger than the others, with more than 16 liters per year per habitant, and 1 bottle on 3 drinking is rosé. Belgium and Switzerland are quite average markets. For rosé, now around 6 liters per habitant and around 15% market share. But finally, all other markets are under average, even the US, less than 50% of market share, included Weizenfundel, and less than 2 liters per year per habitant. So in fact, we think that all those markets should grow to an average of maybe between 10 and 15% of market share, and around between 2 and 4 liters per habitant. So for our International Rosé Symposium in last January in Marseille, we did this estimation based on this average. And so we thought that if all the market under average goes to 15% of market share and to between 2 and 4 liters per year per habitant, the market could grow around 30 million of hectoliters in 15 years. So compared to today, it's 7 million of hectoliters more. Of course, it's theoretical. You can see here that France is mature, but Europe could increase. US should increase on the dry rosé, because dry rosé is less than 5% of the market. But also Asia. Asia is a very small market for rosé now, but we know that, for example, China could increase a lot more than that if suddenly they want to drink rosé. So for us, the market has still a lot of potential, the world market. So now what about us, Provence, in this market? Provence, in Provence, the production is around 40 million of cases. And the most important thing is that we are specialized in rosé from the beginning. It's 90% of our production. So our producers, they think rosé from the vineyard until the glass. And, but we had to face big changes in few years, big and quick changes. The main one is the growth of our exports. 10 years ago, exports were very small, less than 10%, and only French drank dry rosé, and nobody else. 10 years after, exports are more than 35% for us in only few years. So we had to adapt to this new market, especially thanks to you, because US is now nearly half of our exportations, but also United Kingdom, and now markets such as Canada and Australia are increasing a lot. So we used to sell wines in Provence, and now we have to sell wines in Australia. So it's not the same thing. And we improve a lot our capacity to export, our marketing, and our quality, because those markets are very demanding on volumes, but also on quality. And so we had to improve it. And rosé is 96% of our exports. And I think the most impressive figure is this one. It's our exports in the US, multiplied by 10 in 7 years, from 2011 to 2018. And so it's quite impressive. And with the US, all the other markets are following the trend. And one big change for us was also the brand thing. The increase has to do with our brands, some historical brands like Minuti or Hot, but also new brands, and of course, at this time, like Whispering Angel and Miraval, two main brands who did a lot for the increasing of the market. And so for us now, it's a big trend, also in the US, but also in the rest of the world. And that's all.
Thank you, Brice. It looks like everything is turning out very rosé-y. Now we're going to transition to Erica, who is going to present to us the U.S. market trends of rosé from the 750 platform.
Hi, I'm Erica Duecy. I'm the editor-in-chief of 750 Daily. We are a trade publication that is actually an independent publication within a tech platform owned by 750. So 750, the way you can think of it, it's really the first and largest national platform for wholesale alcohol. So what we are looking at here is the 3-tier system, and in order to use 750, you can think of it, we do have tools and services, and it's really a platform like a Amazon.com type experience, where buyers in this case are bars, restaurants, and retailers. The distributors are the middle tier, so the distributors would be the sellers in this case, and we work with about 80% of the distributors in the United States. And then the third tier, importers, wineries, et cetera, are marketing to the trade on our platform. And our reach, we are active in 45 states. We have about 75,000 wholesale buyers using the platform who are doing 20 million annual searches and have $8 billion in purchase power. 750 Daily, we started that about 2 years ago, and that publication is a trade publication. It's free, it's online, you can go and look at it, but really we are geared towards the trade, and so wine, beer, and spirits, and all 3 tiers. We were recently named one of the top trade publications in the country by the American Society of Business Editors, so I encourage you to check us out. Looking a little bit at a benchmark, we all know that rosé is growing. I just took a look at the platform today, and I was pretty surprised by the number of just rosé products that are available just in the New York market. So does anyone have an idea of what you can buy for rosé wine, like the number of products? Are we talking dozens, hundreds? Any ideas? Hundreds. 3,700 bottles, separate SKUs, meaning individual products, are available to buyers in the New York market alone. So that gives you an idea of the complexity of and scale, really, of what we're talking about in terms of rosé. So this is Nielsen's most recent off-premise data. You know, last year saw that there was 39% growth in dollar sales for the year ended in March. And one thing to keep in mind is, like, we see pink, we see people drinking pink everywhere, but this is really just 3.6% of the overall share of wine sales. And so that figure represents about $518 million at off-premise. So what we're looking at here, this is rosé SKUs by country of origin. So this is in distributor portfolios. And so when you're thinking about our data set, what's interesting is that distributor portfolios, this data is not usually available. It's very hard to get, but it's really a leading indicator. So if you think about where consumers are buying, they're buying from retailers and restaurants. If you think about where restaurants are buying from, they're buying from distributors. And distributors are looking for those cues as to what is going to be coming down the pike, what is the next big trend. So here we can see over the past 5-year period, and even before that, there was substantial increase in rosé SKUs on the market in distributor profiles across the country. And so you can see France, of course, leading the way. I think that makes a lot of sense. The rosé that we typically are thinking about is like that pale pink style that you're seeing all over social media. But we are seeing some variation, some expansion and fragmentation. You're seeing growth from other countries. So the US, Italy, and Spain are the other 4 that we highlighted here that have the highest SKU counts within distributor profiles. And then looking at prices by country of origin. So the median wholesale bottle price for rosé, and here we're looking at still wines only, 750 milliliter bottles, and so $12 is the wholesale price. So if you want to think about a retail price for that, add about 30% or more. So the retail price on that would be about $16. So that kind of benchmarks where we are in terms of sales for all countries. But looking at the other top rosé countries in rosé in distributor portfolios, what you see is that USA is at the high end, and I think that's interesting because rosé in the US is probably actually higher than that, but these numbers are weighed down by white Zinfandel, which is in like that $3 and $4 range, but that counts within the category of rosé. And then I think at the lower end, you're seeing Spain come in. So we, you know, in the prior presentation, we were just looking at, you know, that Spain is a major producer of rosé, and so I think they're really targeting the U.S. market with a lot of value bottles. Looking at rosé SKUs by regions within France, you know, you still see Provence at the top, like that style that we all know and love. But what I was excited to see in this data was that you're starting to see more variation. So, so the Rhone Valley, for example, those are some of the Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre blends. Those are like those brighter, heavier bodied rosés that you would see from regions like Tavel. Right? So that tells me that there's more fragmentation, there's more expansion happening in this space. And the same with the Loire. The Loire for appellations like Anjou, which are known for a sweeter style of rosé, and also sometimes lighter bodied with Gamay and Cabernet Franc based rosés. So you are starting to see consumers, and actually since it's distributor portfolios, it's really distributors betting that there's going to continue to be growth in this space. And one thing to mention is that we are seeing just strong growth across the board. So because distributor portfolios are a leading indicator, if we were starting to see declines here, we might be saying, rosé has peaked. It's time, you know, its time has come, its time is over, but that's really not what we're seeing. We're seeing continued growth across the board. looking at the prices, it's interesting that, Burgundy, Loire, Provence, they're above the median. And I think, in that case, that probably reflects some of the premiumization that we're seeing. So more and more you go into restaurants, you're seeing bottles at, the $60 to $100 level for rosé, where that didn't used to be the case. And then at the lower end, you've got, Bordeaux and Southwest France. And I think what we see there is that, there's a lot of bulk wine, there's a lot of oversupply coming out of those regions, and as the regions are looking to have brands that cleverly package these sort of lower end wines, rosé is an attractive opportunity for that. So thinking about a little shift here. So now we're going from distributor data into buyer ordering data. And what we've really seen over the past several years is an expansion of the rosé ordering season. So here, what you're seeing is that where it used to be a couple of months that buyers were really ordering a lot of their rosé products, you see it much more now that it's really stretching out. And then, somms that I know in the space will tell me like, hey, if you don't get your buy the glass rosé locked in by February, like you're done. You're locked out of the good selections for the year. So I think you really are seeing the wholesale market thinking about rosé for a broader period of time. But I would say, in terms of the general trends, what we're really looking at here, I'm hearing a lot of people talk about the premiumization, the expansion of styles and varieties and colors of rosé, and all signs are that it's growing in a really strong direction. So I think it's exciting to be involved in a presentation when you can show data that all signs are wonderful, and that's really the case here.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Eric. I know you did spend a lot of time mining that data, over 100 hours or so. So thank you for presenting this to us. So we're going to take the next logical progression, having gone from the vineyards to the importers, distributors, and now to the consumers, with Heini.
Thank you. Can I stand up?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. So I'm Heini Zachariassen. I'm the founder of Vivino. Vivino is a wine app. We are the biggest wine app, biggest wine community in the world with 35 million users. Have you all heard about Vivino before? Yeah. Lucky me. Thank you. Around 8 million users in the US, and around 20,000 people install Vivino every single day. So still growing rapidly, and it's been an amazing ride for us. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about that. I want to show you a little bit here, something that you might not know, something we launched quite a long time ago, but not everybody's heard about it. We are starting to read wine lists now too. So when you're at the restaurant, you can take a picture of the wine list, and it will read all the wines and give you a rating of that too. That is kind of cool. So before I get to the data, I want to show you a little bit of a funny picture here, because we have very, very dedicated users. And this is from the Ryder Cup a few months ago, and everybody's taking a picture of Tiger Woods, and everybody's fascinated, except for this one guy. Look at this. So he's clearly on Vivino, doing his thing. So I think Tiger is disappointed. Anyway, I'm going to talk about 3 things here on rosé, and most of this is based on the scans. How do we see how people scan wines, but also what people input. So some of the data that people input. And we'll look at growth, seasonality, and taste. But let's start with the growth. When you look at a map, this is the ratio of where people drink rosé. So how much of whatever people drink is rosé? And we can clearly see that France, obviously, a lot of rosé. Eastern Europe here is doing well. I don't know the story behind that. I can see it. And obviously, the US is doing well. When we looked at this, again, this is raw data. We don't have a lot of users in all of these places. But I did notice that North Korea did really well, too. So that was a little bit weird, too. So I guess one of the Kims really likes rosé. But looking at the growth here, 2017, we're at 2.1% of all the scans are rosé, and it's growing 7% to 2.25. So clear growth in all the scans. So confirms whatever you guys are seeing. I did think about when I saw all your data, why are we even having this conference when it's selling so well in the US? I mean, It's just crazy numbers. So anyway, digging down to the US, the growth is even stronger, 13.6% in the US alone. And I do get this question, like, hey, is it still growing? From our side, yes, definitely still growing. And people also ask, where's the growth coming from? And or where are they taking market share from? And the biggest one there is red. Sparkling is also growing, but it's taking a lot of market share from red and somewhat white wine. Again, this is relative, so it doesn't mean that things are going down. Volume could still go up. Cool. So where does it come from in the US? And again, this is pretty much confirmed by the other things, that France is the biggest, but the US is also very, very big here. And actually, US is growing faster than France right now on the rosé side. So 1.35% is France, and 0.83 is the US. But the growth over there, you see that France is at 12% and the US at 21%. When you dig down to these, where do they actually come from? Rosé, like by far the biggest. You got Rhône and Languedoc on top, but Provence by far the biggest. And this is just raw. Nobody paid me to say this, just so we're clear. Cool. So one of the things I wanted to show you here is that when we looked at our app, we asked our people, hey, what do you want to know about a wine when you scan a bottle of wine? And when we ask people that, they say, I want to know the rating. Is it good or is it bad? That's number one. I want to know the price. That's number two. How much does it actually cost? How much do these people like me? And the second thing people want to know is, the third thing is the taste. So what does the wine actually taste like? And that can be difficult and subjective and all those things. So what we have there is obviously these descriptions. So people, they put words on the wines that they drink and say what they taste like. But we wanted to take that to the next level. And we've done this, what we call taste characteristics. So every single wine now on the platform, we tell you, is it light, is it bold, sweet, dry, and so on, depending on the type, and what kind of taste do people get. So that's been extremely popular, having that on all the wines. So we took this data and looked at rosé, and I think this is the first time we've ever done that. What does rosé, like as a whole, actually taste like? The thing that came back was like strawberry is number one. Look at what people see in rosé, strawberry. After that, it's raspberry, peach in the cheaper categories. And when you get expensive, there's more minerality. You got butter, cream, and oat coming up. Those are the dominating flavors. If you look at the scales, again, we've had to read a lot of reviews to do this. The acidity goes up, like with price. It's not that clear. I think the very inexpensive ones, it's low, and it gets very high on the expensive. With the body, it's also not super consistent. It's high on the low price and then goes a little bit up on the higher. And there aren't that many $100 rosés, so this data might be a little bit weak. The sweetness, on the other hand, is very, very clear. It goes down the higher the price point is. So very, very sweet on the lower price and then goes down. So seasonality is something that we talked quite a lot about, and it looks like that the season's getting bigger. And when we look at this, there's definitely growth. We can see that. This is week by week seasonality. And we think, like we said, the shoulders are getting bigger over there, but maybe not as clear as some of the other data showed. And it's quite interesting to see, again, this is the US market, that we see the growth coming a little bit later. If you look at first year here, our data is just not good enough. But 13, 14 is almost flat, and then it starts going up. I don't know if you guys have seen that too, but that's very, very clear in our data. And for us, peak rosé, 4th of July. That's when we see the most rosé throughout the year, and the lowest point is Christmas Day. So big days on both of those. And it's all the way up to 6.7, 6.63% of all scans, quite substantial. Cool. Final thing on this, and I think this was pretty interesting. If we say seasonality is Q2 and Q3, right? So those 6 months are the most where people drink the most. What is the relationship between low season and high season? And when we look at these numbers, I'm trying to explain this one. The less seasonality, the more red it is, right? So what we see here, I think pretty clearly, is that the warmer, taking out Alaska, the warmer states here, there's less seasonality. So in Florida, they drink rosé all year. They don't care, which makes sense, right? And then you go up here where it's colder, and it's very seasonal. So there's a clear difference between how warm is it, how much does it change from summer to winter, to actually we see more seasonality where it's colder. And that, my friends, is what I have. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Heini. I have just a couple of questions for our panelists. And Brice, I just wanted to start with you because you have that fantastic chart towards the end of your presentation, which shows the growth of rosé up until 2035. And you're projecting that U.S. consumption is going to approximately double from about 3,500,000 hectoliters to about 6,500,000 hectoliters. We currently buy about 46% of your exports, and I'm sure that we're going to be vying for the remaining 64% of your exports. What do you think may happen for wines of Provence in the U.S. market going forward?
It's a big issue for us. We had 2 small harvests for the past 2 years. And because we are an AOC, so we have a limited area, we can double our production like that. And because of the climate condition, we'll talk about this just after. And so right now, some markets are decreasing, traditional market like France and Europe, and other markets are increasing, US of course, but also Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom. And so, of course, we'll try to provide all those interesting markets for us, especially the US. But right now, we work on increase a bit our production, working on the area and our productivity. And we work to secure our market share and our premium positioning. We won't provide all the US market we would like, but we won't. And we think the offer will increase. Other countries will increase the rosé production, and probably the offer will be wider, larger, will be larger than now, and with more competitors. So our goal for us is to stay the premium rosé wines and the iconic rosé wines, but not the first one in volume. We won't be able to do that.
Right. Thank you. So, Erica and Heini, that leads me to you. And Erica, you touched a little bit on this for France, looking at different regions and more interest coming in for rosé from the Rhone Valley and the Loire Valley, et cetera. But the two of you, outside of France and outside of the United States, because we make plenty of wine here as well, do you see any other countries in your data that might be able to come up and supply us with more wine as we continue to become more thirsty for rosé?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I've been thinking about this for an article that we're working on, and I am starting to hear people discuss this. People in the trade talk about this, which is the idea that rosé is such a huge cultural phenomenon, and where's it going to go next? Where's competition going to come from? And I actually am starting to think it is not going to come from another incumbent wine category like skin fermented whites or chillable reds, but actually from rosé products across categories. And especially with millennial consumers, we're seeing so much of an adoption of drinking across categories. And I've seen, especially in the past couple of years, a huge proliferation of pink gins, pink vodkas, pink ciders. There's even a pink beer now, Firestone Walker just released. So, just anecdotally, I was at a music festival last weekend, and everyone was drinking pink, and none of it was wine. It was all rosé cider. So I think that the cultural, phenomenon of rosé is going to keep going, and competition could potentially come from cross category products.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And also packaging, I think, is important. Even when you stay in wine, I think you'll see cans, and we see that already, obviously, but I think there's going to be more and more of that. But you said outside the US and outside France competition. If you look at the numbers, the only one really that can sort of challenge France a little bit, at least here, is the US, like growing really fast. I don't see, but then again, this is a big business. There's going to be a copycat, and somebody's going to copy it and do the same thing, especially if demand becomes so big that Provence and France can't really deliver.
All right, so let's stay tuned. And now I'm going to turn over the questions to you. We've seen so much information put up on the screen in front of us. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to pose to the panelists? Yes, hi.
My question is,
Oh, we have a microphone coming in from your left.
hi, my question is, we do see this kind of really rapid growth. Do we think the growth is sustainable? Do we think that ultimately rosé is just going to be just as normal and regular as white and red wine, or do we think this is something that's going to tail off or die down after the trend wears off? Do you think rosé is here to stay? I mean, in such a big way. Of course, it's been around forever, but in this way, do you think it's here to stay?
And this is going to be guesswork, but I would say that this is not a one-year phenomenon, right? This is a trend that's been going on for many, many years. Like just our data shows clearly 5 years. So is it going to hit a peak at some point? Yeah, definitely. Is it a fad that's going to disappear? I don't think so. I think there are generations coming in, and those things move really, really slowly. But when you see this kind of growth, I think the young people like it. So no, I definitely think it's going to stay. It's going to peak. It's not going to get as big as white and red, I don't think, but it's going to peak at some point.
Yeah, and I think, distributors, when they're looking to populate their portfolios, grow their portfolios, they're really oftentimes for wine looking to Europe. And so the European market was like right at the turn of the century. That's when rosé started to take off. That's when distributors in the US started to take notice and started to source the rosé products. And then we just saw sort of steady growth, from there all the way up to 2015. It really pushes into the mainstream. So I think from a distributor portfolio perspective, the pipeline is so strong right now, and we're not seeing any drops in the European market, which distributors, at least in the wholesale side, would be looking to for okay, it's peaking now. So there's been no drop in the European buying of rosé, which would be a possible predictor.
Just one information more. For us, we don't know, but we hope it will last. And we just compare how it goes in other countries, Belgium or France. In France, it took 20 years, but during 20 years, we have heard that it will stop. It's only a trend, and then it will stop. But it lasts 20 years, and now it's 1 bottle on 3 on the market. And so it's really a big segment in France, more than white wines. So we drink more rosé than white wines. And in Belgium, it's the same thing. Now rosé has around 20% market share on the still wine market. So we hope it will be the same in the US.
Yes, in the corner here. Oh, I'll come back to you. Okay. The gentleman in the back, yes.
Okay. I've been in the wine industry for about 50 years and saw trends come and go. What do you think about the stability and longevity of a rosé wine? Generally, we feel that they mostly offer their freshness, but how long can they stay on the shelf? How long can they stay in someone's cellar?
Well, I always say that rosés do, especially good rosés, have the ability to age well. They certainly have high acidity, certainly more similar to a white wine than a red, lower pHs. And they, of course, have more phenolics. So there should be some more substance to allow them to age. We definitely have a habit to drink them early before the next vintage, but we're going to have some patinaed rosés, some rosés that are evolving nicely in the bottle upstairs for you to taste. But Brice, do you have a comment to make as well?
Yeah, but rosé is an instant product linked to the weather, linked to a good moment. But sometimes we think that because if an instant product, you have to drink it right now during the year. So we think if the rosé is well conserved, you can keep it around 2 years. You have to drink it during the 2 years. And right now, it's what consumers want. Some rosé are more aged, but there is no demand for that right now. Some domain in Provence are working on it, like 10 years rosé. And we can do 10 years rosé because if you can do 10 years white wines, you can do 10 years rosé white wines. But right now, it is not the demand. So, but you can, I think 2 years is okay. You can drink during the 2 years.
Yes, the young lady in the front.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Could any of you or all of you address what's going on with rosé as it pertains to the organic and biodynamic wine space?
Well, one of the things that we will be touching on in our next panel is discussing the environment of Provence, the climate, and because it is a drier, warmer climate with less humidity, generally speaking, it is very hospitable to sustainable farming, organic farming, biodynamic farming.
I don't have specific statistics on that, but you will see on the next part that we want to produce more and more organic or environmentally friendly rosé wine. So we have some program on that, just because it's important for us or for the climate, and we think that it will be more and more important for the new generation and the products they will choose. But I don't have specific statistic, only trends.
We have it's Jill around here, and I'll come right back to you. Yes.
Yes, hi. We know that the Provence rosés are leading charge, and I'm a distributor, and I get often the comment, "Oh, it's the color, it's light, they like it." Do we see a trend moving towards a little darker rosé, like Tavel's or Spanish rosé? Is there some kind of trend moving in that direction?
Erica?
Yeah, I think we are seeing growth for both regionally within France for regions that are known for a broader range of colors, a heavier style, a range of sweetnesses, as well as Spain, Italy, etc. So I think that we are starting to see that, and I think that just really speaks to that the category is really expanding, but people are wanting to try. I think consumers, wholesalers, kind of everyone are open and interested in trying new styles, new flavors, and experimenting. And I mean, it's a fun category. So I think it's also part of that is that restaurants, retailers, etc. are looking to differentiate themselves. And so if you see something that looks a little bit different than your typical rosé, I mean, maybe that's a conversation starter, and you're excited to try something new and expand your horizon a little.
Not that I have a lot, but I would assume that it's still a very, very small thing. And I guess it's also a sign of maturity of the market that people are drinking rosé for some time and now they want to try something else. So although we see those wines, we don't see a lot of them sort of in volume.
Okay, please.
Okay. I love Provence rosés, but I happen to really love the reds and the whites, especially the whites. And I'm wondering if you see any evidence of reds and whites sort of piggybacking on the success of the rosés.
Anyone from Provence?
Yeah, from the region, for the moment, no, because we don't have enough rosé. So we don't produce more white or red. Our red and white markets are more in Provence. So it's you've seen the statistics. It's 4% for the white wines and 6% for the red wines, and we have more and more wide variety, especially the Vermentino in the vineyard. But for the moment, it is used in the rosé. So now for the moment, we think we have very good red and white wines, but it's more for the local market. And the demand is too strong for rosé. So we capitalize on what we know, what we succeed.
So we'll have to go to Provence to get the red and the white.
Yes.
Hi, sorry. Hi. My question was just in terms of your new feature on Vivino with your tasting notes. Are those done by people on your staff that are professionals, or is it crowdsourced from your users? And also with your new wine list feature as a sommelier, how do you see that affecting the dining landscape and the whole hospitality experience of a restaurant when people might just want to go, scan it, got it, don't have to talk to me?
Good. No, sorry. So let me address that first, because obviously some somms feel a little bit intimidated by that. So what is this? Are we not going to need a somm anymore? But the fact is obviously that if you have a somm nearby, you are privileged, and most restaurants obviously won't have a somm. So whenever you have a somm, definitely use the somm. You can combine it with some data. But when you go to like most sort of casual restaurants, obviously there wouldn't be a somm, and that's where it's really really useful. The feature now just gives you a rating for every wine, then you can click on it and see how it matches you. But we want to expand it so it actually recommends to and says, hey, we think this one matches you or matches the food. We haven't built that yet. So with the taste, on the other hand, that's completely community-based, but it's based on volume. So what we do is actually we read all these reviews. It's machine learning and AI that reads through all of these and then sort of aggregates that this is it. And then users can actually go in and correct manually, and then that feeds the machine. But yeah, it's all community-based, and we found it to be pretty accurate, actually. We can see on the feedback loop that it works really, really well. Thank you.
Are there any question here? Can we get the microphone?
Hi. You guys talked a lot about the seasonality of rosé, but a lot of the marketing is focused on summer and beaches and swimming. Do you think that with a shift in the marketing, it could become just alternative to white throughout the year rather than a specific summer beverage?
Yeah, I mean, just, I don't have specific data, but I would say that more and more I'm seeing rosé featured year-round on both retail shelves and on restaurant lists. And, I will order a rosé in the middle of winter and, not think twice about it. So I think that that you are starting to see that, and that's, there's, as from the ordering data that I showed, there's actually pretty good ordering from buyers, like even during the shoulder season. So, like the late falls and the early springs. So I think it just is expanding and probably will become more and more common over time.
And Brice, I believe it was you who had mentioned that the French tend to drink rosé when the sun shines. It doesn't matter what the month of the year is.
Yeah, that's right. That it's less and less linked to the summer, but it's depending on the weather. And if the weather is sunny, we sell more and more wines in ski station, because when it's sunny in ski station, you can see rosé on the piste. I don't know if there's a piste in English?
The slopes.
Slopes, okay, slopes, sorry. And so it depends on the weather. And I think for us right now, it's really a good thing because rosé is linked to a very good moment. So we don't try to say you can drink rosé at every time and every moment and every weather, because it's a good thing to be linked to the good weather and the sunny weather. So I prefer that people drink rosé wine when they are happy and when it's sunny. It's a good moment to drink rosé, and it's always sunny somewhere in the world. So
it's a good psychological link. Any other questions? Gentleman in the back in the green sweater.
This is a question for the founder of Vivino. I am a local importer distributor. You have a wonderful app. There is one question that I have for you. In terms of the feedback from the user of Vivino, I find it that they have very good descriptions on the wines that they taste. But I do have a concern, me and some other importer distributors, in terms of the pricing. I find that not all of them are accurate in all categories, rosés and other wines. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's pricing is definitely difficult. We have 10 million wines in the database, and what we have is like a hierarchy of if we have a certain price, we'll show that. For instance, we're in New York now. So the first thing we hope for is we have a local retailer that sells this wine, and that will be the price we show. And then we just work our way down, and hey, is there a retailer in the US that sells this? Okay, let's put that price as the best price. And we keep going down. The worst price is if it's a user-reported price. And it's just a hierarchy. We go down, and sometimes we'll go all the way down, and the best price we have on a wine is some random user in France that added a price, and that's not always as accurate. So if the wine is for sale, in the US, it's very likely that the price is good. But sometimes when you get to more interesting stuff, it will not be as accurate. We try to do our best on that, but you definitely have a point.
Okay, and I see there's another question here.
I don't know. Okay, it's on. So in the spirit of seasonality and the fact that it is still very much drunk during the summer season here in New York, especially for the consumer, and it is like summer water, legitimately. This past season, we had a really bad summer, and practically every weekend it was rainy, and a lot of people that did allocation buys are still sitting on their 2017. So has there been any discussion within Vin de Provence about how to strategically move forward with 2018, being that a lot of buyers are not buying 2018 on allocation buys? Question.
For the moment, we don't see this in our statistics.
Okay.
The demand is still very strong, but we hear that maybe there is still 2070 wines on the market. So it will probably depend on the weather. Some brands or companies are very concerned about this thing, but we don't have their specific statistics. We have only global statistics. For us, maybe it should be an opportunity to détendre. How do you say it? Huh? Détendre.
To relax.
To relax a bit the market, because the market is very tense, and now so if we can relax it a bit with the 2017 vintage, who could last a bit longer, maybe it would be better for us.
I think the enthusiasm behind the category is still there, but there's hesitance because it's such a seasonal focused wine still, even though the industry drinks it year round. And the buyer on the consumer side, from what I've heard from buyer friends, they've been more resistant to buy big lump sums, as they have in previous years when like rosé ran dry. So the saturation's there and the availability is there more than ever. And that was my question, basically.
Yeah, it's a question for us too, but we'll see what will happen in the next months.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that is going to conclude our question and answer session. Thank you for a fantastic round of questions. And it's going to be interesting to see how this rising tide of rosé continues to change as we have more colors of rosé coming into the market from different places. Of course, the iconic Provençal pale pink rosé will hopefully, for Wines of Provence, stay in its premier position. But we'll also be seeing if we do expand our shoulder seasons and start drinking rosé throughout the year, rosé for après ski, and other such things. So thank you, Brice, Erica, Heini. Fantastic presentations, lots and lots of data. We feel very privileged to have had your insight today. Thank you.